Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to review the Emotiva SE12 subwoofer. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you might remember about 6 months ago, I reviewed the Emotiva SE8 subwoofer. And I really enjoyed my time with that. And I remember thinking, it'd be really cool if they made a bigger version. And lo and behold, they did. Here we have it today. This is the 12-inch version. So I'm going to take you through the review the same way we usually do. I'm going to tell you about its specs, its features, pros and cons, a little bit about what it sounds like. And because it's only $100 apart from its little brother, I'll compare it to its little brother towards the end. So what do we got is a 12-inch down-firing driver, a 12-inch front-firing passive radiator, 200-watt RMS amp, 400 watts peak. Its frequency response plus or minus 3 dB is 28 hertz to 200 hertz. It has LFE, RCA, and high-level inputs. That's going to be really helpful for those of you that don't have pre-outs or subwoofer outs on your preamp or AVR or whatever it is that you're using. What else do we have? Its frequency adjustment is going to allow you to go between 60 and 150 hertz. It's got a 0 or 180 phase switch, auto or on switch. It also has a rocker switch to turn it off completely if you'd like to. Size is going to be 15.75 in length, width, and depth. Its weight is going to be a hefty 46 pounds. Not bad for $400, and it only comes in black. Next, I'm going to tell you about two of its unique features. The first one is what they call a transparent limiter, and what that's going to do is stop this thing from running out of steam. It's going to stop it from bottoming out, distorting, being overdriven, any number of things that are very common with budget subwoofers. Those of you that have used cheap subwoofers in the past know if you're watching a movie, for example, and some low energy rumble comes through and you've got that thing turned up a little too much, it's going to freaking bottom out. It's going to sound like crap. You're going to risk damaging your subwoofer also. No one likes that. The built-in limiter stops that from happening, and it does give you a sense of like this thing is more powerful than it actually is, which is pretty cool. I never noticed the limiter kicking in and holding me back at any point during my movie watching or listening to music. I watched 2 different movies with it, and I spent about 10 hours of music listening with it. So the next standout feature is the built-in crossover. So a lot of people believe that for proper subwoofer integration, what you want to do is remove the bass or some of the bass from your main speakers, cross them over at say 60 hertz, for example, and all the bass 60 hertz and below goes to your subwoofer. More expensive AVRs have a feature like that built in, but if you're looking at this video and you're interested in this $400 subwoofer, I'm guessing your processor or AVR doesn't have something like that because you usually need to spend a lot to get that. This subwoofer has that built in. You can see it on the screen behind me. That's why I chose to have that picture up. So what you're going to do, and you can do this for music too if you like. So whatever your front end is, say it's an AVR for example, and normally your RCA outs go to your power amp. Instead of going to your power amp, it's going to go to this. And then the RCA outputs on this are going to go to your power amp instead. And you're going to choose either 60, 80, or 100 hertz cutoff for your mains. And then you're going to set this up, you know, based on that. If you choose 60 hertz cutoff for your mains, you're going to set this thing to 60 hertz, for example. And it should give you pretty quick, seamless, and easy integration. If I didn't already mention it, a lot of people believe, and I do believe this, it is true, that when you remove some of the bass from your main speakers, you're going to get usually better clarity, imaging, and they're going to be able to play a lot louder, which is going to be, I'd say, more important for budget gear, right? What else do we have here? Market context. What other companies are going to be competing for your $400 for subwoofers in this category? I did a quick Google search, and this is what I came up with. First, we got the Polk HTS10. That's a 10-inch ported model with 100 watts, and it's $350. Next, I found the DefTech Pro Sub 800. It's an 8-inch driver with an 8-inch passive, 300-watt amp, $400. Next, I found the Klipsch R100. That had a 10-inch ported driver, ported cabinet 10-inch driver, 150-watt amp, $400. And lastly, the Aperion Bravis 8D that had 2 passive radiators that were 8-inch, 1 8-inch driver, and 300 watts. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I didn't list another 12-inch subwoofer. I didn't do that on purpose. I couldn't find another 12-inch subwoofer that was $400. So I'm not saying one doesn't exist. I couldn't find one. If you know one that exists, maybe leave it in the comments. But that's where this thing really presents the value, in my opinion. If you step up your budget, sure, you're going to find 12-inch, 15-inch, 18-inch, 21-inch subwoofers, but at $400, Most subwoofers are 8-inch. Some are 10. Some are 10. Most of them are 8-inch though. Pros and cons. Big output for the money. It really does have big output, and its slam and attack is really good too. I'm happy that it has that, because the smaller version, the 8-inch, also has that. In the review for the 8-inch model, I talked about how when the bass comes on, its initial attack and slam is quick and effortless. And what I believe is happening here is, because Emotiva is an amplifier company at their core, I believe the amplifier they designed for this has a good power supply and a strong output stage. It's high current, and it can deliver the power needed during those dynamic swings quickly and efficiently to move that cone rapidly and immediately pressurize your room. That's not something I've really heard at this price point before. So big hats off there. The next pro I listed was the built-in crossover, the built-in limiter, and the fact that you're getting a 12-inch driver with 200 watt amp for this money. I thought that was great. Cons. Setup was a little bit difficult in my room. My room seems to not get along really well with passive subwoofers that have passive radiators. I don't know why that is. I've had a few in here. Maybe it's my equipment overall and the system synergy. I don't know. It always seems to take a little bit longer to set up and integrate properly. In fact, in my room, subwoofers with passive radiators have a different sweet spot even than, say, a sealed subwoofer would. Sealed subwoofers usually go over here. Subwoofers with passive drivers usually sound best where I'm sitting over here. I'm actually sitting on a subwoofer right now. What else do we have? Oh, and of course, with the whole setup thing, that can vary. Maybe in your room, this thing will set up in 5 minutes. Maybe in someone else's room, it'll be an hour. It really depends on the other gear you have. But what I do want to say about setup is this, and it's really important. Every subwoofer sounds bad when it's set up poorly. This one sounds really bad when it's set up poorly. And that's actually a good thing, because if it sounds like crap, you've got it set up wrong. Spend more time with it. Hell, even call Emotiva. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help you get that thing set up right. So, I dealt with that myself actually. For the first couple hours, I was like, this is like not meshing well for some reason. And I knew it wasn't the subwoofer, because I know Emotiva makes good stuff. I've heard lots of their subwoofers over the years. So I didn't give up, and I was able to get it to sound right. What I was doing originally is I had it in the same spot I have my sealed subwoofers. And then I remembered, in this room, subwoofers with passive drivers go right here behind me. Anyway. The only other con I listed was that the frequency adjustment knob only lets you go down to 60 hertz. I usually like to set my subwoofers closer to 50 hertz, so for me that was kind of annoying, but no big deal. Next, what does it sound like? I'm going to tell you about its output, distinction, speed, extension, and authority. Output is going to be excellent. It's got excellent output. Like I said, it's got slam, and it delivers, and it pressurizes your room quickly. And I think this is about as much output as you're going to get for 400 bucks. Straight up. The distinction, when I say distinction, I'm talking about, do the different bass frequencies sound different? Cheaper subwoofers have a bad habit of homogenizing the sound of bass, meaning whether you're playing a 30 hertz tone or a 50 hertz tone, they kind of sound the same. One is just maybe louder than the other. This doesn't do that. You can tell the difference in bass frequencies with the subwoofer. I appreciate that. Speed, surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. That impressed me because the 8-inch model has very good speed, and you would expect it to. It's an 8-inch subwoofer. I thought the 12-inch would be a lot slower. It's not. It's a tiny bit slower, as you would expect from a larger driver in the budget category, but I would not consider this a slow subwoofer. Typically, it's been my experience that if you've got a sealed subwoofer over here as being the quickest by design, and a ported subwoofer over here being the slowest by design, usually subwoofers with passive radiators land right in the middle, has been my experience. This one isn't right in the middle. It's more over here. It's almost as quick and tight as a sealed only subwoofer. Extension, pretty good. I'd say really good, especially for this price category. Most subwoofers around this price category, you know, you got like 30, 32, 34, even 38 hertz cutoff frequencies. This goes down to 28, add a little room gain into the mix. You've got a healthy 24 to 25 hertz frequency extension, which is not bad at this price. Authority, again, very good. I think the slam and initial attack really helps this thing sound like it's got some good authority to it. The bass also sounded what I would consider fairly controlled, and it hit deep too. This thing got pretty deep, which again, the 8-inch model also did. This really is just a larger version of that. If anyone's heard that subwoofer and you liked what you heard and you want bigger, this is really your answer. It's almost like they just put that smaller one in like that, you know, some like machine to just make it bigger, you know. Anyway, other impressions. The strong attack I already talked about. The setup can be a little tricky. We already talked about that. Break-in, very important here. Now, you might disagree with me, and that's okay, but hear me out. I've owned a lot of subwoofers, not just home subwoofers. I've been into car audio for about 20 years. I've had hundreds of subwoofers. Most subwoofers break in. It's just a fact. I don't care what you think. Most of them do. Give this thing about 12 hours. If you buy it, you've got a 45-day in-home trial anyway. Give it 12 hours. Let it run for 12 hours before you start tinkering with its adjustments, putting it in the perfect spot, and really trying to tune it. If you try to tune this before the 12-hour mark, you're just kind of wasting your time, because around the 12-hour mark, it gets a lot deeper, and that's important. So next, it's going to be great for theater and music. I didn't find that it had any characteristics that made it any better at one or the other. It really is what I would consider ideal for people with mixed systems. Lastly, we're going to talk about how it compares to the SE8, its little brother. And again, they're only $100 apart. So guys, like, you know, if this thing isn't tremendous value at $400, being only $100 more than its 8-inch version, I don't know what is. But what I wrote here is it's going to be slightly less. It's going to have slightly less speed, slightly less of a strong leading edge to its sound, but it's going to have more output everywhere in its frequency response, especially in the lower frequencies. Essentially what I'm getting at here is every difference you would expect from this being larger, it has. You know, smaller subwoofers typically are going to be a little bit quicker. We expect that from their smaller size. Larger subwoofers, especially in the budget category, are typically going to be slow. This isn't slow, it's just not as fast as the 8-inch version. So I don't think you can go wrong with either, but if you've got a $400 budget, I think it makes sense to get the bigger one. But if your budget caps out at $300, the smaller SE8 is great also. Now, some of you guys are going to ask me how it compares to more expensive subwoofers. I don't like that question, because other companies would have to be designing really bad products for a cheaper competitor to come in and make a superior product. So let me get into that just a little bit here, because there's going to be two kinds of people. Person one, you've got a budget more than $400. You're just thinking, can I be cheap and save some money? Don't do that. With subwoofers, you should spend up to your budget. If your budget is $600, buy a $600 subwoofer. Trust me. Don't be cheap. So that's person one. You're trying to save some money. You want to know if you could save some money with this thing. Don't do that. Second kind of person, this is your maximum budget, $400, and you want validation. You want me to tell you that this $400 subwoofer is going to be like 90% as good as a $1,000 subwoofer. I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't want to lie to you, okay? If this was as good, like 90% as good as a $1,000 subwoofer, I mean, like Emotiva makes $1,000 subwoofers themselves. That like wouldn't make sense. You know what I mean? So just like this is a lot better than a $200 subwoofer, as we would expect it to be, an $800 subwoofer that's double this price would be better than this. That's normal. I'm gonna give you a last analogy here with cars. Toyota Camry, I've talked about this before. Great car, very reliable, does everything well, and it's sold at a fair price. That's what you're getting here. A good subwoofer that does everything well, that's sold at a fair price. No one in the world has ever bought a Toyota Camry and said, that was too expensive. I didn't get my money's worth. I think I could have gotten a better car for the money. No one ever says that when they buy a Toyota Camry. When you buy a Toyota Camry, you know you're getting as much car as you can get for your dollar. That's literally what it's designed for. Now, can you spend $50,000, which is about $20,000 more than a Camry costs, on a nicer car that does almost everything better, like a fully optioned out Audi A5? Yeah, you can. You know, you can. You can always spend more and get something better, and you can always spend less and get something not as good. For $400, I don't believe you can get better. That's my stance on this subwoofer. If you've got any questions, ask them in the comments below. You guys know I'll answer pretty much all of them. And until next time, later.